Hey, I'm PH, and welcome to another episode of Good Bible Knowledge with PhD. In this set of videos, I want to answer common questions about the Bible in a fun and creative way, and I hope these videos will be helpful for your own spiritual journey in Jesus. Let's get started. Who is Ezekiel? Ezekiel was a prophet who ministered during the fall of Jerusalem and the consequent exile in Babylon. The name Ezekiel means God strengthens, and his book is filled with a number of complex prophecies, parables, signs, and symbols. The overarching theme of Ezekiel is the sovereignty and glory of God, and the flow of the book follows two important subjects: the condemnation and the consolation of God. Ezekiel is filled with rich imagery containing 10 signs, 6 visions, 6 parables, and several apocalyptic visions. The book begins with the call of Ezekiel as the Lord appeared in a vision of flashes from heaven, 4 terrifying creatures, and a great royal throne. The presence of God was further displayed by the glory of God which filled the temple in Jerusalem. In chapters 4 through 24, Ezekiel then goes on to expose the utter sinfulness of his people and the inescapable consequences of judgment. The sin of God's people had infiltrated every aspect of society, from kings to priests to the rich to the governing officials. The holy temple in Jerusalem was defiled by the disgraceful sin of the people, which culminated in the tragic event of the glory of God visibly departing from the temple in Ezekiel chapter 10. In chapters 25 through 32, God pronounces his judgment on the surrounding nations of Ammon, Moab, Edom, Tyre, and Sidon. Ezekiel spends an extended portion of time describing the prince of Tyre, who was a symbol of Satan himself. Ezekiel concludes in chapters 33 through 48 with words of comfort and consolation, as God promises that he will bring back the strayed, bind up the injured, and strengthen the weak. He will shower the nation with blessing, and the nation will be restored secure in the land. The most memorable image is that of Ezekiel's vision in the Valley of Dry Bones in chapter 37. As Ezekiel stood in the valley filled with skeletal remains, the Lord declared, "Son of man, can these bones live?" The bones began to rattle and miraculously came together and were covered with sinew and flesh. And the Lord said, "These bones are the house of Israel, and I will bring them back to life so that you and all the nations will know that I am the Lord." Ezekiel concludes with a vision of the temple once again filled with the glory of God, the assurance that once again God will dwell with his people. And from the threshold of the temple will flow streams of living water, representing God's blessing poured out upon the nations. The initial fulfillment of this final vision came in the form of Jesus, who was born in Bethlehem 500 years later through his death on the cross and his resurrection from the dead. In chapter 36, God proclaims to his people, "I will give you a new heart, and will put a new spirit within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and give you a heart of flesh." In this new covenant, the law of God would no longer be simply written on physical scrolls, but rather internally upon the hearts of the people. The ultimate fulfillment of this new covenant will be at the second coming of Christ, when he will dwell with his people and bring God's blessing and peace upon all the nations. Thanks for listening to another episode of Good Bible Knowledge. We'll see you next time.